Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Hello everyone, I'm Julia Seal and welcome to episode 1.3 in our first series of the Happiness Matters coaching journey. The overall series looks at defining and assessing your happiness at work, and today I'm introducing our next focus area in our coaching together, your future vision. We're now shifting from defining and assessing your current happiness and success at work and moving into the future, your future. If you remember, the last two episodes explored your happiness right now, at the start of your coaching journey, what we call point A in coaching. We did this by looking at how you measure and assess your current happiness and how you view your life to date, including those snakes and ladder milestones on the game board of your life. We're now looking at the next phase of our coaching journey together, and we're exploring your happiness and success at work at the end of your coaching journey, what we call point B in coaching, the goal of your coaching journey. In these next two episodes, I'm going to take you on a visioning journey to discover your 10 out of 10 happiness. Where do you want to be? What exactly do you mean when you say you want to be happy and successful at work, no matter what? We're going to have some fun as you try out a key concept in coaching, future visioning. Through this tool, we'll capture your current vision of what point B is for you right now. Then I'm going to share 3 wisdom concepts from the academic research on happiness. These might well expand or even explode your definition of what is happy and successful at work for you. They will also ensure that your definition is robust, that it truly is a worthy pursuit for you. So how does this sound? As a reminder, if you missed last week or any previous episodes in the series, you'll find enough in today's session to be able to start coaching yourself. You can always go back and listen to previous issues, or join us now in the Facebook group, Happiness-Matters.coach. So point B, the goal of your coaching, the end of this coaching journey. We'll call this 10 out of 10 happiness, or the top rung of your happiness ladder. What is happy and successful at work for you? What does no matter what mean to you? What do you want your future to look like? What will have transformed in your life at the end of our coaching together? You might already have a bunch of ideas, either that you brought with you to our conversation last week, or that you've developed through listening to the definitions and ideas shared in the last episodes. Now I'd like you to exactly define your 10 out of 10 happiness vision. What can you possibly think of that would take you to the top of your ladder? Would it be that promotion, a new salary, a new job title, a new boss, a new company, expanded responsibilities, more creativity, more meaning? What is the most exciting and invigorating future view of your happiness and success at work that you can come up with? Have some fun and dream up what this would look like for you. Importantly, I do want to address some concerns at the start of your 10 out of 10 visioning. Some of you might be wondering if this happiness at work is something we should be doing at all. I mean, if we've been pursuing happiness as humans for the last 2,500 years, then perhaps we should give it up as pointless. Surely by now we should have reached happiness after all this time, all this thinking, all this research. Certainly, we've all heard the messages in the media that tell us that it's pointless. Money won't make us happy. Get out of the rat race. be less materialistic. We're chasing an unrealistic rainbow and unicorn ideal. We're also often told that focusing on our happiness is self-indulgent and self-obsessed. Because this is such a hot topic, I've planned an entire special episode to discuss it further. I have already planned an episode for you on Aristotle, the father of happiness studies, but it's worth looking deeper into this topic as well, happiness as a worthy pursuit. We can look at this in greater depth. We can also look at the links between happiness and success, how inextricably linked they are. And we can look further at the reasons for creating this podcast, what our whole Happiness Matters coaching philosophy is about, and why we're focused on how to be happy and successful, no matter what. In addition, we will explore the views of one of my own teachers, Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. If you remember, I introduced him in episode 1.1. He is the creator of Harvard's most popular course in its history, and is the first to develop a field of studies dedicated to an interdisciplinary academic approach of happiness. His stance is that happiness is the ultimate currency, the highest on the hierarchy of goals. His work has led him to this point, that all other currencies, all other goals, whether money or possessions, accolades or prestige, only have value if they can be converted into or exchanged for happiness. They're worthless if they cannot yield happiness. Our in-depth exploration will air after this Series 1, so look out for it. For now, let's work from the stance that your happiness is a worthy pursuit and worth spending your time exploring through this coaching journey. That's probably why you're here on this podcast with me anyway, isn't it? So what I want to do with you now is to start actually creating your future vision Point B coaching goal. I'd like you to brainstorm a future vision board of your 10 out of 10 happiness. What would life look like if all your definitions were spot on, all the issues you currently have were non-existent, and if you could say you were 10 out of 10 happy and successful at work, no matter what? To help you with this part of your coaching journey, I've created a free worksheet for you that uses the Future Visioning Coaching tool. This worksheet will support you in coaching yourself in this episode 1.3 and the next 1.4, and builds on the earlier coaching tools of the Happiness Ladder and the Snakes and Ladders game of your life. So be sure you head over to download it from our website, Happiness-Matters.coach/free. In doing this brainstorming of your 10 out of 10 top of the ladder future vision board, there are two concepts here that some of you might not be familiar with: brainstorming and vision boarding. These are real management consulting type words, aren't they? And if English is not your first language, then these probably sound just like a form of crazy game. As a digression today, I'll explain both, but I also encourage you to look at the links in the show notes I've given you for more ideas, especially the Pinterest and YouTube links on how to use a vision board to tap into your creativity. You'll find the show notes also on our website, happiness-matters.coach/podcast. Brainstorming. Sounds great, doesn't it? A brainstorm. And that's really what it is. Using the brain to storm a problem. Similar to storming a fortress, an idea familiar to anyone who's into internet gaming these days. Anyway, brainstorming is a creative problem-solving methodology designed by an advertising executive called Alex Osborne in 1939. He needed to get his employees to come up with better creative ideas for advertising campaigns. The idea behind brainstorming for your future vision is letting your mind get creative. Think of things you've never thought about. Dream big. Dream beyond what you think is currently possible in your life. This kind of thinking is also called thinking out of the box, or thinking outside the square, or even lateral thinking, all of which mean to think differently or unconventionally or from a new perspective. In other words, to not think of the obvious things, but to think about things beyond them. It is essential that you stick to Osborne's principles for brainstorming. Go for quantity. The more ideas, the better, because the greater the number of ideas will generate the biggest chance of radical and new ideas. Withhold all criticism of your ideas or any self-judgment. So avoid any kind of limiting criticism, either from yourself, thinking about what's possible based on your past, but also from others. Those well-meaning friends and family members who do come with good intentions, but who can so easily put a damper on this kind of thinking. Wild ideas are encouraged today. Vision boarding is the other creative thinking tool we're going to use in creating your future vision. This might be better known to many of you after watching the movie The Secret. Now, rather than us vision boarding to leverage the law of attraction and getting mired in the debate about how well this works, we're going to use vision boarding now only to inspire you at the start of your coaching journey. Again, vision boarding is another strange mix of English words. The basic idea is to create a board, a poster even, with images that represent your future vision. It's creative because it draws on our other creative faculties, especially our visual faculty, which is a really useful thing to do when you consider about 65% of us in the world are dominant visual thinkers. Vision boards are tools for dreaming, for fantasizing about your perfect world and your perfect life. You can cut images from magazines or print images from the internet, write words on the board, stick on items to represent the things you aspire to, how you'd like to feel, what you want to aim for, anything that means happy and successful at work. Now, this podcast is an awkward way to explain how to vision board. So I've created a list of links that you can use. You'll find these links in the podcast show notes on our website at Happiness-Matters.coach/podcast. Okay, so now that you've had some fun with brainstorming and vision boarding, your 10 out of 10 happiness top rung of the ladder, I want to go back to those happiness frameworks that I introduced in episode 1.1 and bring the first happiness wisdom concept into your future vision. Do you remember the frameworks we discussed earlier when we were talking about definitions of happiness and definitions of happiness at work? I introduced 4 to you then. There was Gallup's Q12 survey questions of engagement and happiness at work, Martin Seligman's PERMA definition of happiness, the Greater Good Science Center's PERC definition, or Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar's SPIRE framework. Just to remind you, the PERC definition of happiness at work includes purpose, engagement, relationships, and kindness, while the SPIRE framework of happiness includes spiritual, physical, intellectual, relationship, and emotional whole being. I would like you to consider these frameworks again as you create your future vision definition. Really, just take one of these frameworks, the one that sounds the most interesting to you, and brainstorm and vision board what each of these areas might look like for you. I will include them on your freebie download. This ensures you create a definition of happiness at work that is robust and ensures you don't fall into a one-sided or limited definition based only on what you're finding difficult or unpleasant in your life right now. Rather, this will help you create a definition that is expanded and includes the wholeness of your life. I'm sure this will inspire you with the expanded possibilities of your happiness and success at work. And I do trust this will bring a new perspective to what you mean when you say, no matter what. And this should also ensure that your own happiness coaching journey is really worth your effort. The reason why I suggest using these frameworks is to come up with an expanded definition that is robust and based on well-researched concepts, rather than just an extended list of things you think will make you happier at work. A list of things like buying a new Tesla, your boss resigns, you get a 5-star performance rating, or you receive the company's top innovator award. And the reason for such a robust and thorough definition for you is the happiness paradox. The happiness paradox is our first happiness wisdom concept, and it's the very reason why we need to look at happiness sideways, through the corner of our eye, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by this. The happiness paradox is most commonly known as the paradox of hedonism, or the pleasure paradox. It refers to, and I quote, the practical difficulties encountered in the pursuit of pleasure. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? Basically, it refers to the trap we can fall into, what can happen to us, or the difficulties we might experience in actually trying to be happier. The original researchers were looking at pleasure, or what we call hedonic pleasure, which is happiness as short-term satisfaction of our desires, pleasure rather than a longer-term, more sustainable happiness, or praya in Sanskrit rather than sukha. The researchers explored what happens when actually pursuing pleasure on purpose, and why it did not yield the most pleasure. In other words, when pursuing pleasure, we can feel no increase in pleasure and might even feel less. So our pursuit of pleasure ends up with us being even more frustrated. More recent research supports this and shows that those who value the pursuit of pleasure, for those whom pleasure is of prime importance, are more likely to be lonely, which is then linked to depression and unhappiness. So the pursuit of our happiness backfires if the object or our goal of our happiness is pure pleasure. It's a paradox, simply because happiness is what we all want more than anything, and yet if we pursue what we typically think brings us more pleasure, we end up being less happy. Simply put, by one of the most influential English-speaking philosophers of the 19th century, John Stuart Mill, ask yourself whether you're happy, and you cease to be so. This is so interesting when you think about using the Happiness Ladder assessment tool from episode 1.1. It all depends on how you are assessing and how you are defining happiness. Using this tool will either greatly increase your happiness every day or actually decrease it. It all depends on how you define happiness, what your own personal definition of happy and successful at work really means. So at first, this just looks like a no-win situation, doesn't it? And that's why it's called the happiness paradox. Because that's what a paradox looks like. You can't win either way. If you don't pursue happiness, you won't get any happier. And if you pursue happiness, you won't get any happier. Some of you might well be feeling justified in your criticism that we shouldn't even be aiming for happy and successful at work. This is so good. But if we take the happiness paradox into account when we're creating our 10 out of 10 future vision of happy and successful at work, we can avoid falling into this trap. Knowing about the happiness paradox cautions us as to how we focus on our happiness and how we actually go about pursuing happiness. We have to look at a way of circumventing the impact of the happiness paradox. We have to avoid the trap of directly pursuing happiness while directly increasing actual happiness levels. And the way we do this is that we have to approach happiness from the side, pursue it indirectly, or pursue the indirect things that lead to happiness. In other words, we have to put it out of sight to some extent and not directly aim for it. As I said, look at happiness sideways, from the corner of your eye. Okay, so how do you feel after that? It's a bit of a mind twister, isn't it? If you want to read more on the happiness paradox, there are some links in the show notes on the website. These insights from understanding the happiness paradox are exactly why I want you to look at your 10 out of 10 happiness using one of the robust frameworks we spoke about earlier. Using these well-researched frameworks will ensure that your definition of happiness is not solely hedonistic, but an indirect, holistic, and sideways definition of happiness. So, for example, if you're using SPIRE, you would be defining your version of happiness sideways via spiritual whole being, physical whole being, intellectual whole being, relationship whole being, and emotional whole being. Or if you use PERC, you would be defining happiness at work indirectly in terms of your purpose at work, your engagement at work, your relationships at work, and kindness at work. Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar explains this beautifully with his comparison of the SPIRE framework with a rainbow. So as you know, a rainbow is white light refracted in raindrops and reflected back to us as 7 colors. So white light is broken up into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. How many of you grew up with the mnemonic, Richard of York gave battle in vain, to remember the order of colors? Or Roy G. Biv? Or how about really offensive YouTube games built into videos? Or even better, rinse out your granny's boots in vinegar. What was yours? So think of happiness as white light, the most beautiful, which we can't actually see. It's made up of the 7 colors, each of them essential and each of them beautiful on their own. So just like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet together make up white, together SPIRE, S-P-I-R-E, makes up happiness. I see a lot of rainbows from my office as it overlooks the mountains, especially now as our winter rains hover in the air. They are absolutely exquisite things to look at, aren't they? And whenever I see one, I'm always drawn to thinking about the myth of leprechauns hiding a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Have you heard about this one? The fable apparently originates from Ireland, when in ancient times the Vikings used to come down to Ireland to steal gold. When they left Ireland to go home, they left some gold behind, which the Irish leprechauns quickly buried at the end of rainbows to ensure no humans would ever find it again. Leprechauns being those mythical little men with huge beards who get up to all kinds of mischief. The rainbows, as you've noticed, have no end. They seem to move when you do, and that's why finding the end of a rainbow is impossible, and why finding the hidden gold is an endless pursuit, a fruitless exercise. And we do not want to be creating your future vision as an endless pursuit, a fruitless exercise, a hidden pot of gold at the foot of an ever-shifting rainbow. This is definitely something we don't want to be doing on our happiness coaching together. Another useful phrase to consider is unicorns and rainbows, which means something similar and is heard often these days in movies and TV shows. And again, it's something we don't want to be doing on our happiness coaching journey together. Unicorns and rainbows is used to describe a wonderful but unrealistic scenario, a feeling of perpetual bliss, pure happiness and satisfaction. Unicorns being beautiful but unreal mythical creatures, and as we've discussed, rainbows being beautiful and unreal as a solid thing to reach. For a squirrel moment, you can listen to 10 hours solid of the 3-line song, Pink Fluffy Unicorns Dancing on Rainbows. It went viral back in 2010, making its creator, musician Andrew Huang, a YouTube superstar. I had a look at it the other day. It's more than 80 million viewers, all for the simple 3-line song that can do your head in if you listen to it for more than 30 seconds. Here's how it goes. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. See what I mean? Well, that was a bit of silliness. Always good when creating your future, brainstorming and vision boarding. You might be wondering if your 10 out of 10 definition of happiness at work is like the mythical pot of gold never to be found, or as outlandish and ridiculous as pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Future visioning, choosing your point B and pushing your limits of possibility, is an essential component in a coaching journey. Coaching is always about looking forward in your life, moving beyond where you are currently stuck, and reaching for what feels unattainable to you. So all I'm doing here is just opening you up to lightness, to playfulness, and to what might be possible for your life. So many of our clients find it very difficult to access the dreamer, the creator in themselves, and to create a future vision of happiness beyond a basic list of things that they don't want. By comparing this future vision to one or more of the well-researched frameworks for happiness, you will create a robust vision. This will make sure that we're not wasting your time or efforts in this coaching journey. We also don't want to stretch for something you discover you don't want when you get there. You've got this far in your coaching journey. You've thoroughly described your point A now, and you've purposefully and intentionally visioned your point B future. It might seem exciting to you now, and you're ready for the very next step. Or it might seem too complex and difficult, especially if you've come face to face with an impossible problem. Remember, if you want to work through this with me personally, you can sign up for coaching on our website just by clicking on the yellow button at Happiness-Matters.coach. Alternatively, bring your ideas and your concerns to our free Facebook group. I'm in there regularly to coach and work with you. So in this episode today, we started the process of focusing you forwards into your future and to the possibility in your life of being happy and successful at work, no matter what. Don't forget to download your free worksheet and continue this work offline or with us in Facebook. I hope you had some fun listening to this and coaching with me this week. Thank you for joining me. Next session, we are going to dig deeper into creating this vision of your future in light of our other 2 wisdom concepts, 50-50 and the hedonic treadmill. Bye for now from Cape Town International Airport, where I'm flying off to Namibia with a rainbow and unicorn earworm.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.